G'day. It's time to down your unders. Review and dissection of content from some of the sharpest minds in the game. Hosted by Adam Camilleri. Art of War. Down Under.
Hello everyone and happy new year to one and all. This is the first episode of 2025 and we're starting off with pretty much a episode just for me, playing into the two armies that I expect to be playing for the majority of 2025. So this is a little bit of self-service, but in lieu of that, I am joined by an absolute gent, someone who has been of great assistance and great knowledge, I guess, just as sharing knowledge, part of the stat check crew, Mr. Tim Pinney. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hey man, thanks for having me on, and hello to all your listeners. Been a long time listener, first time caller of the show.
Wonderful,
and I love what you do.
Well, I hit up my good man, the man with the best name in 40k, Dick Vanderhaast, and he's like, dude, I'm about to have a baby. It's Christmas and New Year's. Leave me alone. Go talk to Tim. And I'm like, you know what? I probably should have hit a Tim a while ago anyway. So let's do this. But we are here to review the Iconoclast fiefdom for Chaos Knights. Also in this episode, going to be having Brian Jones joining me to help me review the Imperial Knights Detachment, and then Stuart Trainer helping me review the Grey Knights. And of course, there's going to be part 2 for each one of these episodes. So if you want to join any of that goodness and get in on that goodness, Patreon at Art of War Down Under. Hope to see you there. Tim. Iconoclast fiefdom. So the strap on the damned units to the Chaos Knights units and they become a battery and all that goodness. What are your hot takes on this detachment, my man?
I mean, at the initial blush is it gives you like everything that a more elite army kind of like wants to have. You have these 50-point battle line units that are small, they're easy to hide, they're relatively quick, but they scout, they sticky. You combine with Nurglings, and now you have infiltrate. Now you have scouting. Now you have sticky, and it just gives you these very low commitment pieces that don't really take giant chunks out of your army. Because with the index detachment, when you took demons, every time you slotted in a demon unit, besides Nurglings, like you felt it.
Exactly right. You wanted to take 10 battle line in demons, you're looking at 100 points or more on every front for the vast majority of 10th edition. Whereas, you know, apart from Nurglings, which of course have gone to 0 SC, if you want a battle line that can do a thing, you have to pay 100 points in demons. And now you can just be like, well, I can just take 20 cultists for the same points as or way less points than 10 horrors.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right, let us jump into the Iconoclast fiefdom detachment rule. First up is the Titanic Chaos Knights in this detachment get thus. It's an aura. While a friendly damned unit is within 9 of this unit, each time the model in that unit makes an attack, a reroll, hit roll of 1, and reroll a wound roll of 1. Whoop-de-doo is my first impression there, because giving my cultists reroll once to hit, once to wound ain't going to matter that much. And of course, people will already identify when we get to the bottom here that you can include damned models. So that means, you know, AC/DC squads are an option, but I have found definitely, and maybe Tim will back me up, that is not the way I end up going with these lists. Tim, what do you reckon?
I think it was kind of like a, you know, geez, thanks sort of rule. I mean, it's better than not having anything. It doesn't feel like they removed a rule to add this in. It feels like this is just purely incidental. So it doesn't really feel like they ate into the power budget here. But like you said, I don't think this is going to be particularly impactful, because with the current points, I just don't think you're really going to see a list that has, you know, 1 or more Titanic Knights in it, and then enough accursed cultists to truly be impactful, because that is a lot of points.
A huge amount of points. The other side of the coin is Chaos Knight units from your army have the following abilities. Dark Sacrifice. Pretty much you get to pact as a Chaos Knight, similar to how Chaos Space Marines do. A unit with this ability can select to do it when they shoot or fly. They can make a Dark Sacrifice. If they do select one damned unit within 6 inches, that damned unit must take a leadership test. If passed, they just remove D3 models. This isn't mortal wounds. This isn't they take damage. This is just D3 models scooped. If the unit is failed, their leadership test. It's D3 plus 3 models are scooped instead. And for the price of a bunch of cultists, you'll get lethals or sustained on your Chaos Knights model. In addition, you can take 500 points in a 2,000 point army of damned models in your army, but no damned model can be your warlord. How do you feel about this detachment rule as a package, mate? Because, of course, it is all kind of encompassed in the same kind of, package.
I mean, it's very thematic, right? Because I've told people before, I've never played Magic the Gathering, but you spend enough time in this hobby and you end up being
Yeah.
kind of adjacent to, like, people who play D&D or people who play card games, stuff like that. And someone explained the 5 different colors of Magic, and it's been fun to see how that identifies with game design in 40k. And Chaos has always kind of been like a black deck style, where you can, kind of sacrifice, some of your resource or some of your life force or some of your blood or whatever, and then you become more powerful.
Yeah.
We see that in CSM, and we definitely see it here. You get this incredible boon of having these cheap trade pieces that's sticky and scout and everything, but you can also just cannibalize them, to
Yeah.
give yourself more power, and then that power might not even do anything. Like you might not roll any sixes, or they
Correct.
might make all the saves, but those cultists, pass or fail, like they're gone. They're going
Yes.
away, and they
They
go
are
away
going
quickly,
away.
and they go away
Yeah.
very quickly.
That's exactly what I've heard. So I haven't actually had any games with this detachment as of yet. I decided to use my Chaos Knights practice for in the OG, the index detachment. But everything I've heard is that like everyone is just shocked at how quickly they eat their cultists. But anyway, what is the first of the enhancements, mate?
Let's see. We'll pull the PDF. The first enhancement, and this might just be my favorite, is Profane Altar. I can read the lore if you want, or I can go right to the crunch.
Go right to the crunch, baby.
All right, because the lore is pretty good. A Chaos Knights model only. Each time the bear makes a dark sacrifice, which is the detachment rule, where the cultists take the leadership test for sustained or lethals, the maximum number are destroyed in the damned unit, i.e. 3 if the leadership test is passed or 6 if it has failed. But until the end of the phase, the bear's weapons have both lethal hits and sustained hits 1.
And it will set you back 20 points, which actually is not that much for what you're getting there. 20 points to get lethal and sustained, but you are, icing the maximum number of cultists, which, like we said, could be 6 a turn. You only start with 10 in a unit for 50 points. So this is 2 instances and they're dead. What I do like about the detachment rule is that if you only had like one cult, I should have said this before, if you only had one cultist left from a unit, you'd still get to do it. You still get to do the dark sacrifice.
Correct.
And sure, you kill D3 plus 3, who cares? There was only 1 left. I do like that about the rule. Like, you don't have to have 6 guys left in a unit in order to do the leadership test, to do the thing. But yeah, Profane Altar, in my opinion, is auto take, right?
If it's not auto take, it's definitely the second best one, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think the scout. I don't want to bury the lead, but I think one of the ones coming up might be the auto take. This is definitely up there, and I think a lot of CK players really, not to brush with the or paint with the broad brush, but we like to rumble, and it's very much kind of an aggressive rock and roll type of army.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why they wrote it first, because you just read that and your eyes light up.
Yeah, you get into it. Next one is Pave the Way, which is the one you were alluding to. This is 15 points. Chaos Knight model only. At the start of the declare battle formation step, you can select up to 3 damned units from your army. They have Scout 6. So just giving out Scout 6 to 3 units for 15 points. That's 5 points per unit to give it Scout. I think that is an absolute bang. And I agree with you. I think these top 2 are probably my, like I said, this is auto take for me. And the Profane Altar is pretty much auto take for me as well, as long as I'm taking a big knight. But yeah, Pave the Way. Because the biggest issue, right? Because when you talk about that rock and roll kind of list, when you're going to go in and get mixed up, you're going to send in your carnivores, your stalkers, you're going to be pushing aggressive angles with your brigands. Everything moves 12 or more. You're going to be outpacing the cultists very quickly at a minimum. Whereas the Scout 6 lets you do stuff like try and sticky middle objectives, get into spots and nooks and crannies to let your knights pass you by while still being in range for the dark sacrifice. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah, exactly. It's as you mentioned, it's anyone who's played against or with DG. One of the things you see them do a lot is they'll try to scout those cultists right away and try to low commitment sticky the center objective or something like that. And you you can absolutely do that here, which is a fantastic way to start the game, and it gets you a lot of impetus and tempo on your side if you go first, which is exactly what you want, because and with any army that kind of does damage to itself while the opponent is doing damage to yourself, you really want to get very aggressive if you go first, because you're going to run out of steam halfway through the game when all the damage finally hits that critical mass. So the more aggressive you can open, if you get the opportunity to go first, the better. And then with stuff for like GW, like layout 1 or whatever, where you have that L-shaped ruin right in the beginning, being able to chuck, put some Nurglings up there and then chuck some Cultists right up there, like to go into it, that gives you a fantastic launching point to safely contest primary, suppress primary, do secondaries while your knights are trying to go around it and get angles.
Yeah, I agree. Next one, what is it?
Let's see, the next one is Tyrant's Banner for the bank busting cost of 5 points. Chaos Knight model only. Each time the bearer makes a dark sacrifice, select one visible damned unit to take a leadership test instead of a damned unit within 6 inches.
I actually like it because it's 5 points and who cares? And it's so hard to make a 2,000 point knight army anyway.
This is fantastic. Well, I guess when we start talking about more potential like list ideas, I think if you, I don't know if this knocks out one of the first two, but I could definitely see if you're running 3 big knights, I could see taking this, or I could see, if you don't, for some reason you don't take Profane Altar, this is not a bad one, especially with some of the faster knights. Some of the knights move 14 inches, can advance and charge, go through walls, and next you know, you are very far away from your cultists, and then being able to activate sustained or lethal on a key activation from some cultists that are on the other side of the board is pretty powerful. That's only 5 points.
Agreed. It's only 5 points. All right, last one, Diabolical Resilience, which is 35 points, the most expensive. The bearer has a Feel No Pain 6+ ability, and you can ignore any roll modifiers to its move characteristics and or advances and charge rolls made for it. So it's 35 points. I mean, this is the equivalent of the Armor Contempt one in the Index Detachment, I guess. But for 35, I actually find this to be the least palatable, and despite it just being like, lol, 6 Feel No Pain. Because, I mean, is it going to change the metrics that much, especially seeing as you have to take it on a big knight or a stalker? You're never going to take it on a stalker. No. So it's a big knight only, but it's 35 points. How do you feel about it? And the second part of it, the no modifiers to move, advance, and charge, it kind of isn't a thing.
That's kind of what I was going to point out. Right now, as far as I know, none of the movement debuffs in the game, like the Thousand Suns Sorcerer on a Disc or the indirect from Eldar, none of that stuff. None of it affects vehicles and monsters.
Let alone Titanic.
Let alone Titanic. So once they start, maybe if that's something that starts getting added into the game, even then, man, this is really expensive. If this was like a 6-up Feel No Pain and then a point-for-point rewrite of the 9th edition Warlord trait Bow to None, where it just ignores modifiers, period.
Yeah.
This would be a windmill slam auto take, just ignoring all mods. I will be honest, when I was sitting there and my Lancer was just, took 6 mortals from Typhus, took grenades, took tank shock, was taking a ton of lethals, that were on my invuln. It definitely kind of was. I definitely was kind of missing the Feel No Pain, but that effectively would give the Lancer 30 wounds instead of 25-ish.
Yeah.
I don't think it really would have changed anything. However, if you are dead set on taking this, or if the points work out the way you built your list, because sometimes it's kind of like World Eaters, where you just have these huge gaps in your list building. You're like, oh, I'm at like 1965 or something like that. I would say you would want to take this on either the Lancer because it has a 4-up invuln, or you would want to take it on a Tyrant with the 2-up save, something where you're already much more durable than average. And I think a Tyrant that's T13 and 2-up, or a Lancer that's fast with a 4-up invuln, that Feel No Pain on top of it, that second layer, that third layer of defense could be impactful, but it is very pricey, and you're only getting half the effect, really.
Yeah, you're paying for a part of the enhancement that doesn't do a half a damn thing is the issue. And Profane Altar plus Pave the Way, the other two the enhancements that we thought were bordering on auto take, cost the same combined as this one does. They're
Correct.
20 and 15 respectively. So yeah, the first two are the auto takes, and lol, if you got 5 points left, slap a Tyrant's Banner in there. Who cares? Why not? And you have someone who can take it. That is because that's the thing, right? Characters are actually in very short supply in Chaos Knights. It is actually rare that you have two characters in your Chaos Knights list the vast majority of the time. Because, I mean, of course, up until now, everyone's playing with, here is 1 Stalker, 12 War Dogs, stuff like that. So we will definitely talk in part 2 about how to get more character in your list and not feel silly about it. First of the stratagems, 1 CP, Avenge of the Masters. It's in any phase. 1 Chaos Knights unit from your army that was just destroyed. You can use this stratagem on that unit even though it was just destroyed. Until the end of the battle, the enemy unit that destroyed your model is marked. Each time a damned unit from your army makes an attack that targets that unit, you get lethal hits. Whoop-de-doo once again. I doubt I'm ever going to use this one, but how do you feel about it, Tim?
This is one of those ones where, this is not going to be part of your game plan, but it's a good thing to just remember and keep in your back pocket because, let's say you go to 5 GTs, you're going to have one game out of those 25, 25 games, wherever, where maybe you're just going to have a random opportunity to push out a 20-man unit, and they shoot their little auto guns, auto stubbers, or they charge and they do their little attacks, and then they put some lethals on something that doesn't have like a really powerful armor save or something like that, like a Necron vehicle or something like that, where it's high toughness, 4-up invuln, and you just and like it's got damage reduction, and you just drown it in damage 1 lethal hits.
I get you. Yep.
That's such a hyper specific scenario. It's just kind of this is not your game plan. Don't go out there and try to engineer this situation. It's just if the situation falls into your lap, just don't let it pass you by because you forgot that this was a thing. But I think this is going to happen 1% of the time, not even.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the next strat?
See, the next strat, are we going left to right, or are we going top?
We're going columns. Down. Yep, down.
Okay, so next one is Wretched Masses, 2 CP. The timing is any phase. The target is 1 damned unit, excluding a cursed cultist from your army that was just destroyed. You can use the stratagem on the unit even though it was just destroyed. The effect is you add a new unit to your army identical to your destroyed unit in strategic reserves at a starting strength and with all wounds remaining. Restrictions is you can only use it once per battle, which is pretty typical after the data slate changes. And the stratagem cannot be used to return destroyed character units to their attached units.
Yep. So obviously the best case point here is 20 cultists come back and continue to be a battery for a bunch of knights, right?
Yep, you can either do that, or if we're getting to the kind of like later stages of the battle where most of your damage dealing assets are kind of depleted and your opponent has really committed to your side of the board, you could potentially kind of do a unstoppable green tide situation, and you come in their backfield with 20 cultists, and now you're jumping on their natural expansion. Maybe you're jumping on their home field or something like that.
Yep. Nice. I like that. All right. Next up, we have Soul Hunger, 1 CP. It's in the fight phase just after Chaos Knight unit from your army has fought. If one of the models were destroyed as a result of those attacks, your unit regains up to D3 lost wounds. If one of the models from that were battle shocked were destroyed, so if you destroyed any models in a battle shocked unit, you gain D3 plus 2 lost wounds instead. So a nice little heal option, which isn't crazy impactful. I did have a little cheeky look to see if the Megara, if Chaos Knights regains D3 lost wounds a turn as well, like the Loyalist version. But how do you feel about Soul Hunger?
It's not bad. It's one of those situations where you will most likely try to do it if you're not really gonna. This list doesn't really, or this detachment doesn't really have ways to engineer multiple force battle shocks the way the index one does. But they do happen, and if you're on the lookout for them, then you can you can definitely charge into a trash unit or a unit
Yeah.
that's wounded and go for the D3+2. Otherwise, this would be something that you would try to use to pull yourself out of your bracket
Yeah.
if you're low health in your bracket, or to pull yourself out of the phase where you have to like take battle shock because you're below half or something like
Yeah.
that. It's nice. It's a good thing to have in your pocket, but I wouldn't be surprised if you don't use it every game.
Yeah, agreed. What's the next one?
The next one is Unrestrained Rage, and this is
Probably the best one.
This is the strat. Well, I would also say that one of the best strats in the detachment that's not listed here is grenades. But
True. We
yep,
get grenades in the army.
that's
Yeah, awesome.
what you're really going to be using. But yeah, this Unrestrained Rage for only 1 CP. It's in your movement phase, just after a Chaos Knights unit from your army advances or falls back. The target is that unit. The effect is until the end of the turn, your unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn which it advanced or fell back.
Oh my god.
So 1
Dank.
CP, 1 CP, and you just turn your knight into a Harlequin.
Yeah, 1 CP, do whatever you want. If you were in combat, cool, you don't have to be in combat anymore, you can do whatever you want. You advanced, cool, do whatever you want. This is a fantastic activating stratagem, and
Yes.
I feel like this is the one I want to be playing to use like 4 times a game.
Yeah, this and the fact that you just get to bring cultists. That's probably the 2 primary draws of the detachment.
Yeah, over and
and
above
then,
the detachment rule, and over and above all the enhancements. You are correct. These 2 are the
And the big opportunity cost coming over from the index is index. You're mostly playing War Dog spam, and you're moving 2 knights through walls in the movement and the charge phase. Whereas here, it's only 1 knight no matter what. So that, and then the army rule itself kind of incentivize you to take big knights, but you don't want to take all big knights. But this is definitely the detachment that you would want to run if you've been wanting to field Titanic Knights, and this strat right here is probably the main reason why.
Yeah, agreed. All right, Worthless Chattel is up next. It's in your shooting phase. 1 damned unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, enemy units are not considered to be within engagement range of your unit for the purposes of selecting targets for ranged weapons. At the end of the phase, each time an enemy model loses a wound, whilst that model is within engagement range of your unit, roll a d6. On a 4+1 model in your unit is destroyed after the attacks is finished making its attacks. After the attacking unit's finished. Yeah, 1 CP, shoot into combat. Now, in editions gone by, where tri-pointing mattered a lot more and all this other stuff, this mattered a lot more. I actually think this is a wasted stratagem, because the fact of the matter is I can walk within 6 inches of my damned unit and then just use the detachment rule to pick myself out of combat as well. Like, I can just fail the leadership test and pick up 6 guys and just pull myself out of the combat, not have to spend any CP. There are a lot of ways in this detachment to get around needing something like this, but it's pretty cute. But what do you think, mate?
I mostly agree with you. Like, yeah, I was just kind of thinking the first thing that immediately jumped on my mind when I saw this, kind of like, well, what situation would I actually be using this in? Because they're just cultists, so just falling back, right?
Yeah.
And so my immediate thought went to like World Eaters when they fall back lock you. You fail the battle shock, you're stuck in. But like you said, you can just kind of start sacrificing them. But that also means that you're within 6 inches of a World Eaters unit. So
true. Yeah, true.
So you can kind of stay away from, because like what if it's Corn Berserkers or something like that, and you sacrifice them, you shoot the Corn Berserkers and they surge into you and then you die. You're kind of like, well, that was certainly an activation that could have happened, But
you are correct. This is a way to get around a lot of the surge moves, because you can use. Sorry, go.
Exactly. So I'm going to bring it home. The big thing we're starting to see a lot of this in 40K right now is reactive moves. And this is a really good way, if someone has a reactive move or they're threatening a reactive move and they're kind of like, hey, if you want to try to shoot me, the cultists only move 6, they're going to fall back on a reactive move. I'm going to go behind a wall, or I'm going to miss a Deimos or something like that. And you're kind of like, no, you're going to stay right there. I'm going to move my entire army and then I'm just going to shoot you.
Are you saying that I should charge 20 cultists into the Silent King, sir? Because I will.
I don't know if I would say that, but it's just more of like, if it's just one more thing for your opponent to think about. You just kind of, I would honestly say, if your opponent has react moves, this would be something I would actually bring up ahead of time. Because one, that's good gamesmanship. It's just be like, hey, this is I can shoot into combat. This is the way I have to do. But 2, so one, you're checking the sportsmanship box. But now you're also putting that, and you're making it a situation that they have to plan for. You're not planning to use this CP. You're not planning to
Yeah,
engineer this situation. But now it's something that while they're trying to wrestle with the game state and the board state and the scoring and the strategy, now they have to think about this as well. And so you're putting it on their plate instead of on yours.
exactly right. Now, I've got a term for these kind of stratagems. These are the ones you tell your opponent about but never do. And I call these the stratagems you don't need to spend the CP for. They're essentially free stratagems. They're psychological stratagems that are 0 CP because you never actually spend it.
Correct. Yeah, you tell your opponent about it, and you just hope they don't call your bluff.
Exactly. All right, what is the last one? Which I actually do quite like, but I find the T's and C's are a bit extensive.
It is. This one might be, I think, the second best stratagem here, but it's definitely going to require reps with the army and knowing your matchups, I think, to kind of get the full effect out of it. So 1 CP, preserve the idols. The timing is when your opponent's movement phase just after an enemy unit ends a normal advance or fallback move. The target is 1 Chaos Knights unit from your army that is within 9 inches of that enemy unit. The effect is you select 1 damned or cultist unit from your army that is not battle shocked, not within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units, and is within 6 inches of that knight that you targeted. That damn unit can now make a normal move up to 6 inches. So it's a full 6 inches, not a D6. And it must end this move closer to that enemy unit than when it started the move.
Wildly laden with checks and balances.
It is, but once you having used it, once you play it once or twice, it's not as bad on the board as it reads on the paper.
So they move within.
The nice thing too is that you don't move directly towards the enemy like a blood surge. You just have to end closer.
Yeah. So any enemy unit ends any kind of move that isn't a charge move within 9 of a Chaos Knight. 1 damned unit that is within 6 of the Knight. Yeah, in 6 of your units, so 6 of the Knight gets to make a 6-inch move. Okay, sick. Hopefully everyone was able to follow at home.
So like a War Dog base is about 4 inches. So you could potentially, if they move within 6 inches, and it would really be 5.9, but we're just going to say 6 for the ease of math. Then 4 inches for the width of the base, and then 6 inches behind that is the cultist unit. So you can basically, it can potentially be a reactive move with a trigger of 16 inches away. You know, they finish a movement, and then a cultist unit that's 16 inches away now moves closer. And the best use I've seen for this is setting up heroic interventions.
I like this a lot. Actually, like you unpack it as soon as you said that, you can just use it as a double move on a unit of cultists.
Yeah, it is nice. It's extra movement. And the biggest thing is like some of these bigger. What I've really seen where it was coming up for me is when my opponent was trying to do a 2-for-1 and trying to charge 1 knight and kind of pile into another. And I used the reactive move to move forward, and then I used the heroic intervention to base the models that he was going to pile in to try to tag
That's
brigand
cool.
and stuff like that. Yeah. And so it prevented the brigand from getting tagged, and the carnivore, which he didn't kill, then fell back and used unrestrained rage to shoot his havoc launcher and charge back in somewhere else.
That's cool. I like that a lot. Well, that brings us to the end of the content in the review. So we have 2 ways of rating things, as you probably know, everybody at home. But out of 10, mate, as a Chaos Knights player, how highly do you rate this detachment? Of course, 0 being absolute gutter trash. Why did they print this nonsense? And 10 being the best we could ever have. Pretty much what we had in last edition would be a 10 out of 10.
So I rated the 9th edition Chaos Knights Codex very highly. That was a incredible codex. It was a lot
ticked
of
every box.
Yep,
exactly right.
I will say I'm going to put this as an 8.5 with an asterisk. Power wise, I think it's roughly equivalent to the index detachment, because something we didn't mention, but this came out almost the same time as a data slate that changed the army rule, where when an opponent is battle shocked, they're -1 to hit you, you're +1 to wound them. They changed that to work from round 1 onwards.
Yeah,
doesn't really come up in this detachment because you're not really forcing a lot of battle shocks the way the Tyrants do, or the way the Index Detachment does. So the Index Detachment got a little bit better, and then some of the things that the Index Detachment wants, this detachment gives, but it's not all free because we lost some stuff to get there. So for me, it's a side grade. But the biggest win is that we've been playing as the CK community. We've been playing like 2 data sheets, 3 if you count the Stalker.
Correct.
4, I would say, like most armies were like 3 to 4 data sheets: Brigand, Carnivore, Stalker, maybe Nerdlings. And you try some other stuff, but that's kind of where eventually where they went back to. And this opens up so many more avenues. It lets us get so many dusty models onto the table. It really kind of, I think it's going to actually kind of take a while to solve, because we were talking about before the show, there's a little bit of push pull. You're kind of like, ooh, I want to take big knights because they chew through my cultists at a slower pace, and the sustained hits and the lead
Applies to more weapons. Yeah,
they're more impactful. But I don't want to go too heavy into the big knights, because now I don't have enough stuff on the board, especially if I'm killing my own cultists.
Yeah.
So I think the flavor and everything pushes it up into probably 9. But the fact that you are trading out the detachment rule, because the detachment rule and the army rule go hand in hand.
Yeah, correct.
And so the fact that you are changing that detachment rule that makes your army rule work to get this new set of rules, that feels like a little bit anti-synergistic. So that kind of drops it down to like 8.5 with an asterisk.
Yeah, I'm a little bit lower. I'm a little bit more like around the 7 mark. I do think this is similar to if you guys listened to last week's show, I talked about, I praised the Custodes detachment so highly because it just activated a whole different part of the model range. Which is something the Custodes players haven't been able to do. Exactly the same for Chaos Knights players. We have not been able to activate any of the big knights. I'm very excited about the spoilers. Somewhat excited about some of the melee knights, the Lancer and the Rampager. Maybe they get a little bit of look in some ways. But I'm extremely excited about a whole different part of the model range. And that's exactly what we want from Grotmas. That's exactly what we want from these things. But the thing is, though, whereas I found the Chaos Knights Index Detachment very easy to pick up and play, I reckon this is going to be a very steep learning curve to pick up and play this. And so I've given it a few less points, just because I think Chaos Knights players, unfortunately, might pick this up and drop it, because it is so very different to how we currently play. Do you see that?
I definitely felt it in my games. I played a couple games yesterday, and I brought a bunch of knights, and I had like 3 lists ready to go, and we just kind of rapid fired. We played it, and until I saw what I needed to see, and then we re-racked it, and we immediately went again. But I changed the list, and then we just kind of, changed it. And I played very aggressively, so that way I can get data points. I'm like, okay, well, how fast these guys move? How much damage do they do? How fast am I going through cultists? What does everything feel like? So I didn't get a chance to use a lot of the stratagems, because I've kind of floored it for most of the pacing, but I definitely got to put the data sheets to the pacing, and it absolutely is going to be harder to play than the Index Detachment.
And I'm assuming that's because you're playing with a couple of big knights, or at least one big knight, which is something
I started with 4 big knights and 50 cultists and no war dogs, and then I worked my way down to 2, and then I worked my way down to 1, just to kind of, because I really wanted. So initially, I want to get the data points on the big knights, because we haven't played them for so long.
That's exactly
I moved kind of more towards a balanced list as we got into the reps.
That's exactly what I was getting at with the learning curve. It's like Chaos Knight players might have to relearn how to play with a big knight again, and all the pitfalls and upsides therein. But anyway, in the competitive ranking tier list, say from D tier up to S tier, where do you put Chaos Knights right now with the Index Detachment, and where would you put this one?
I would put. Let's see. I would probably put the Index as an A-, and then this one as a B+. Like you could, I think with either of these, especially once this one kind of gets figured out, and some old muscles get retrained, I could definitely see someone winning a smaller GT pretty reliably with this, and then maybe a slightly larger GT if they had a good run of pairings. There's a lot of sharks out there they don't want to see, but if they get a good pairings run, you could probably win a 6-round event with like 60 to 80 people.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I'm one ding down from you. I think I'm a B and B plus for these guys. I think B plus for Index, B for this one. And mostly, like I said, because of the learning curve. I think the best players in the world, if they were to wield this detachment, could do exactly what you said, like just absolutely just clown if they get a good run. But there are definitely some matchups where I really want to try and unpack them with you just from a theory point of view, because there's stuff in the meta right now that I'm as a Chaos Knights player and I'm buddying and getting really into Chaos Knights. I actually just want to pick your brain on some ideas. But we will do that over on part 2. So thank you very much, Tim, for coming on. You've been an absolute lad. And I hope to get you on more frequently and in our night-related content, because I'm going to be doing a lot more of it.
Looking forward
to it. So, Tim, thank you very much, mate. And Happy New Year.
You too.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second segment of this week's Grotmas review. I'm joined by a very exciting guest, somebody who I've been leaning on heavily as I make my journey into becoming a Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights player. He is one of the best Knight players in the freaking world. His name is Brian Jones, and I'm very happy to welcome him to the show. How you doing, brother?
I'm great, Adam. Thank you so much for having me. I am always stoked to get to talk Imperial Knights, and I'm excited that we are taking over the other side of the globe as well.
Indeed. We have quite a few strong Knight players down under, both varieties, famously taking Chaos Knights to the first WTC win, with Matt Morosoli taking him into a meta where no one thought they were good, and he went 7-0 with them at WTC that year when Australia won. So yeah, we got a bit of a story, got a bit of a tale with Knights down under of both varieties. But anyway, we are here to review the Questoris Forge Pack. But before we do, Brian's got something to plug.
Yeah, so I'm a member of Team USA prepping for WTC, a member of Art of War. I do some Imperial Knights coaching, so feel free if you get really excited about the new Questor Forge Pack, or that you love the Noble Lance, or you're just excited about that new codex, please feel free to check out the Art of War site.
Fan-freaking-tastic, my dude. And of course, there's going to be a second part to this over on Patreon. Come and join us at Art of War Down Under. Hope to see you there. All right, my man, hot takes on the Questoris Forge Pact.
Different than what I thought we might get, but exciting. I'm whelmed. Does that? I don't know if that matches what you feel. I love seeing healing come back in. I think there's some sneaky combos in here. I don't think what makes this, I think, a decent offering is apparent on first glance. It's layered in here between the buffs it gives to certain units, the stratagems, and then the enhancements. I do think the enhancements kind of pop.
I found, so on first read, I was excited for the opportunities, with the exception of the restrictions we'll get to, because of course this allows you to take up to 500 points of Adeptus Mechanicus in your army, but in a very small subset of the available data sheets. I was really hoping we'd get birdie boys, that being like the Sky Stalkers or the Taraxi. That would have been a freaking incredible game changer. And plenty of the other data sheets would have been extremely potent as well.
Even the Dune Rider, just to be able to put the Skachari in, like
yeah.
So I understand they're probably trying to be cautious here to not create a monster, but I'm hoping maybe we'll see that loosen in the future. They might edit the detachment. I'll cross my fingers and hope.
Well, yeah, exactly right. Well, we've seen them do it with things like the Vanguard for Tyranids, constantly adding, different units to be eligible in those detachments. Who knows? We might get that in the future. But first up, the detachment rule. This is Cogbound Alliance. Imperial Knight units from your army have the following ability: in your command phase, one model in this unit regains 1 wound. If this unit is within 3 of one or more friendly tech priests, you regain D3 instead. Adeptus Mechanicus units from your army have the following ability. Each time a model in this unit makes a range attack, reroll 1s to hit. Always, full stop. If this unit is within 6 of one or more friendly Imperial Knights, reroll 1s to wound as well. And you can include the following Adeptus Mechanicus units from your army: Dominuses, Manipuluses, Marshals, Rangers, and Vanguard, of a cost up to 500 points in your 2,000 points list. And no Mechanicus units can be your Warlord. What do you make of this detachment rule, man? The restrictions, the buffs, everything.
Again, excited to see healing come back, particularly like knowing it can be up to D3, and we'll get into the enhancements. Vanguard and Rangers are 2 solid troop offerings. And while we do have access to Imperial agents as Imperial Knights, I do think the Skachari brings some different offerings, particularly with knowing you're going to be able to just have them have reroll 1s and reroll 1s to wound more than likely. So having cheap bodies has always been the obstacle for Imperial Knights, right? Anything for backline or anything like that. And then Rangers giving access to Scout, I love that.
Yeah, well, so you say that the cheap bodies, but Knight players have been finding ways, and Chaos Knight players have been finding ways to get small value units into their armies for this entire edition and many in the past. And right now, there is a lot of good options out there, especially in the Imperial Agents sphere, and that's what this competes with, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But one of the things to point out is that these Skitarii are going to have a much higher OC than any Imperial agents, and
True.
I've constantly found that to be a challenge with like subductor squads and other inquisitorial henchmen. Is that it's very easy to get out OC'd, even if one or two models die, and that runs into a problem. Whereas here now it's like, man, all right, I'm going to drop 20, 30 OC on an objective and just say try to deal with that. Instead, it's a lot harder to grab a backline away just from OC.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, you chuck 8 OC armager and 10 ranges on an objective, and all of a sudden they need enough bulk gun equivalents to pick up the ranges, which isn't always easy with the in cover for a 4-up or 3-up, whatever it is, and a 5-up
invuln they got all the time.
Yeah, and then they need relevant guns, a couple of las cannon equivalents to go and pick up that knight, through a 5-up invuln as well. So interesting.
It just creates an interesting dynamic. And I think the Skitarii Vanguard rule, well, I think they're a little pricey at 95. That -1 OC aura, like, it doesn't impact vehicles and monsters, but that is still huge. Again, just for giving us additional tools in the primary game, which is something that, as a isolated faction, just Imperial Knights, when you don't think about agents, we don't have a lot of tools for that game.
I would like to say I find the one heal, the healing of 1 wound, a bit mediocre. I wish that was a little bit better. Like, I wish they got a buff in addition to just getting a wound back, because you give what we're doing here, what we're comparing this to is, of course, 6-up Feel No Pain. 6-up Feel No Pain, freaking army-wide, and then you get Honored and you get a 5-up. And you pointed out something interesting in the green room, that there is no... And this could be some foreshadowing. I have no knowledge of the new Imperial Knights Codex, but you would have assumed that maybe if they were honored, they'd all heal D3, and the Tech Priest would heal D3 +2 or D3 +3 or something. But do you find it pretty ominous that there's no notice to honored in here?
There's no interaction with honored, which is very interesting to me, because GW did come out and say, like, these are prepped for codexes. They will stay correct. After the codex comes. And, I think you're spot on. I wondered when I saw the detachment name and everything, I was like, oh, maybe it'll be in 9th. We had a detachment that was similar, where for Adeptus Mechanicus, you kind of got, each model got an additional wound and they can heal. I would have loved that. Obviously, we got enhancement that kind of gives that, but it only having a single part for the Imperial Knight side, whereas you kind of have stacked buffs right away on the AdMech side. I don't love that. But again, I think this may be it's easier to open the gates up a little bit more on this detachment later than it is to accidentally hand us something that just everyone goes, oh my God, this is allies again, and it's terrible.
Yeah. All right, jumping into the enhancements, the first of which, Omnisci's Champion, is 30 points, Imperial Knight models only, +4 to the bearer's wounds. So straight up, just +4 wounds. You can chuck that on a Dominus. You can chuck it on, well, it has to be a character. You're not chucking on an Armiger, but that can be on a Cerastus or a Questoris chassis. I know you are quite a fan of the 29 wound Cerastus, be that Atropos or Lancer. It is spicy because it doubles down on the heal. You're more likely to be alive, and so therefore you're more likely to heal more turns and create more value.
Yeah, because the heal you want knights that are not going to be killed in a single outing. And so I love this as a 29 wound Cerastus. It's good on a Questoris. I mean, you think about it, it's 20%. Like, the normal Questoris is only 22 wounds. You're adding 4 on top of that. That is not nothing.
Not nothing at all.
So I do think this one is close to, for me, an auto include, unless you're going to maybe think about, and I do think there's some play in this, to maybe go like single Questoris like a Canis and a lot of armigers. Because I do think there's value in going wide, knowing that having so many armigers that are all going to heal, you are going to regenerate more wounds over the total course of the game.
Yep. There's a quality to quantity. Next up is Knight of the Opus Machina. This is 20 points. Imperial Knights model only. I'm not going to say that again. But each time the bearer makes a range attack, if the bearer is within 6 of 1 or more friendly Adeptus Mechanicus units, re-roll hit rolls of 1. 20 points, just real ones to hit. And there are a lot of guns you can strap to this 20-point enhancement. What's your favorite take on this?
It should be in your list every time. I think I've tested it on the Crusader and love that, just because the Crusader is carrying a gun for every situation, as it were, and rerolling ones there is huge. And then I think it could have a place on an Atropos. I wish you could take it on Canos, but sadly you can't. Anything that has sustain, I think, is frighteningly good with this. And the layered reason why we'll get into when we hit the stratagems, but just being able to reroll ones and still have a reroll from our oath, because at least as of now, we still have oaths as a core part of our army rule that you do get access to in this detachment. So you still got a hit reroll outside of that. It really it introduces a lot of reliability. And while there's the rider that you've got to be within 6 inches of one or more friendly AdMech units, that next enhancement there, plus the language on the heel, all ties into you want to have AdMech following around your knights.
Correct. The next one is Magos Questoris. This is 35 points, so it is Exy. This is the most expensive of the options. Tech Priest model only. While the bearer has within 3 of one or more friendly Imperial Knight units, it has a lone operative. In your command phase, select one friendly Imperial Knights model within 3 of the bearer. That model regains 2 lost wounds. So you will heal that knight for D3 plus 2 instead of just 1 or D3. For 35 points plus lone op, this is again a banger enhancement.
It is. And I know it's funny. I think as knights, we like 35 point. The cost of enhancements feels maybe not something that we really care a whole lot about because our points breaks are so weird. So at 35, I do think it's maybe a little pricey. Wouldn't mind seeing it drop to 30.
Are you like me and just to feel like you deserve for like some tech priest to walk into your home and give you a little sticker every time you make a good 2,000 point list? Like that's 2,000 point on the nose.
Yes, I do wholeheartedly. Now that I can't like swap out stubbers and belted guns to make it work, most definitely. Like if I hit 2,000 on the nose, it's like cool. I just solved like a mathematical mystery.
Exactly right.
But I think this one is phenomenal. I think partnering it with this, obviously whoever has this on it wants to be following around another knight. I think there's a case to be made for you could put it on a Manipulus or a Dominus, and I think it depends on how you want to, what kind of knight you want to babysit.
All right, last one. Voicifier Magnificent. This is an aura for 15 points, and it's a stinker. Imperial Knights model only. While an enemy unit is within 6 of the bearer, worsen their leadership by 1. While an Aptitudes Mechanicus unit within 6, improve their leadership by 1 for 15 points. That one does not touch the sides compared to the other 3.
No, that's going to be a hard pass. That's the other enhancement. I think every detachment I think gets one, and this one's ours here.
Fair. So I got a tough question for you here, Brian.
Yeah.
The first 3 are obviously very good. Rank them for me. Which is the hands down always take this one, and which is below that, and which is below that? Because there is a case, I think, where a lot of people are not going to have the 85 points in their list to buy all 3 of these. So if you only had to take 1 or 2, which one would it be?
If I were taking like a single Questoris and going wide with a lot of armatures, I would probably just take Knight of the Opus Machina if it was a shooty big knight, or I would only take Omniscion. I would leave Major's Questoris at home because you just have so many different models, and he's got to be within 3 inches to heal the right one. Now, if I'm going more big knights, 2 or 3, I think all 3 of them have a place. But I do think, I don't know, maybe I'd have to play test it. Maybe you could convince me that sending a Major's Questoris tech priest following around like a group of 3 warglaves, a hunting pack, and then just picking the one he needs to heal for D3 plus 2. Yeah, maybe it's there, but I just feel like most people focus fire down single armatures before they move on to the next one. So you don't often wind up with multiple ones chipped in the same area, but who knows? I think Knight of the Opus Machina, and then the other 2 I would have is like 2A, 2B, and flex them based on my list.
So I have a concept here. Plus 4 wounds is 5 points cheaper than Magos Questoris, and is pretty much the average amount of wounds you're likely to get back from a single heal, because the 2 plus D3.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you plus the fact that you need to take a Magus or Dominus to put that on it, just taking the plus 4 wounds feels like a bargain comparatively.
Yep. I agree.
So
And
that for me is the only thing that delineates between those two. So yeah, Opus Machina 100%, then Omniscience champion for me, then Magos Questoris.
And yeah, I think you're spot on. Like if I'm not, again, if it's a one or the other, I think your logic is spot on. If I've got the points, they do synergize well, right?
Yeah,
If it's
absolutely.
got another 4 wounds to be healed,
I mean,
love that.
At some point, I know you are going to try the Dominus chassis with +4 wounds and the D3 +2 heal. At some point, you're going to do it, right?
This detachment has some tools to make a Valiant. Like you can look at it from the side and think maybe I'm the one who could make it work.
Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the champion all along. All right, first of the stratagems, 1 CP, Omniscience, Grace. Any phase just after a mortal wound is allocated to an Imperial Knight or Adeptus Mechanicus unit from your army. They get a 5-up feel no pain against mortal wounds until the end of the phase. Now, this is big, but not that big. Like versing, like I played a game against Magnus recently where Magnus one-shot Canis Rex because of dev wounds. This would have saved Canis Rex hands down, absolutely.
Yeah.
But against armies that, might just be throwing a grenade, if they do their average of 3 mortal wounds, this is on average going to save you 1 wound for 1 CP. Do you think this is any good?
I think it's got a place. I think it is valuable. I'm not sad to see it because it is until the end of the phase. Like you think about grenades, or there's a hefty amount of shooting weapons. Like most factions have 1 or 2 shooting that randomly cause dev wounds. And if they're going to try to alpha a knight, being able to put this on a diffuge, where it will really show up, I do think, is that combat phase, because combat is so much more often where we see dev wounds. And so the ability, like those 1 to 2 wounds can be the difference between your knight living or dying. And that's, the knights don't degrade in the same way that they used to. Like living is colossal as far as the ability to clap back and everything else, especially because one of the strats we lose here is fight on death. So
correct.
I think of this as the cheaper version of fight on death, where I'm trying to stay alive.
Next up is Vengeance of the Machine Cult, and you've just listened to another beautiful segment before this where the Chaos Knights had pretty much exactly the same stratagem. This is 1 CP in any phase, 1 Imperial Knights unit from your army that was just destroyed. Adeptus Mechanicus units for the rest of the game get lethal hits against the thing that killed that knight. This, I think, is quite mediocre and probably not something I would be using very often.
I want to love it because Tau, as we know in Montka, has a very similar thing. There's the bane of Imperial Knights' existence because you kill a piranha, and then their entire army is getting lethal hits and rerolls. And you look at this at first glance, you want to love it. Where this gets maybe better, and I could see some cases for it, is where if GW clarifies for us if Skitarii still benefit from Doctrinas, as of right now, the way it's worded, they do. There's no rider that they have to be an Adeptus Mechanicus army. So then you've got some extra AP, you've got a +1 to hit. Their guns become a little bit scarier. But honestly, I'm really looking to use the arc rifle and stuff that I bring, and I don't want lethal hits for that.
Yeah, correct.
Dev wounds. So I think it may have a place every once in a while that you'll swear by it, and maybe there's somebody out there that's like, "Oh, I'm bringing the full 500 points of Rangers and Vanguard, and this I can't wait." But
yeah. I mean, you do have real 1s to hit, 1s to wound. So I don't even think the AdMech units need this to kind of punch up. I think this is superfluous.
I can see it if you were like, I want to bring a Marshal with a unit of Skitarii because then they give all hits. Then you really can just be like, you could pick something that's big, like a normally super durable, a Magnus, whatever, and then it's just like, cool. I'm just gonna fit, or Catan. I'm gonna force saves on you with radium carbines. Good for you.
That feels
go
good.
for it. So
right,
there's those fringe cases that you might convince me.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have Bonded Imperative. It's in your command phase. It's 1 CP. Actually, all of these are 1 CP. I can stop saying that too. Just before an Imperial Knights character unit from your army uses a bondsman ability, that Imperial Knights character, when selecting targets for that use of bondsman ability, you can select 1 friendly Adeptus Mechanicus within 12 of your unit in addition or instead of selecting 1 Armiger model. Till starting next command phase, every model in that Adeptus Mechanicus unit is affected by that bondsman ability. This is kind of spicy. This is one of the reasons I wish this detachment had a bigger selection of the AdMech units, because there are so many amazing.
You just start dreaming of what you can do.
Oh, dude. Like all of a sudden, I would want to take a Castigator to give out sustained and +1 to hit. Sorry, and sustained and +1 AP and stuff.
And that's the Castigator, right, jumps to my mind because I look at Bonded Imperative and then the one above we just discussed, Vengeance of the Machine Cult.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so now if I have a Marshal with a unit of Skitarii, they're rerolling all hits and 6s are lethal and sustained with Doctrine AP and okay, suddenly you're starting to sell me.
You're starting to do something spicy with it. You're starting to make it more than the sum of its parts. I mean, in AdMech plays with bend over backwards, so that kind of lethality in their own lists.
Because you look at the Lancer's ability to give out advance and charge, and then you look at our offering of AdMech units, and you're like, well, that's a miss.
Well, that's why this one's a little bit of a miss for me, because I can't quite conjure. I mean, +1 to hit from a Crusader, I guess, isn't the worst thing ever, but you're already hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s. You've got a Marshal, you've got 4 rerolls to hit, so that doesn't touch the sides. There's a lot that just don't matter.
Where this gets really interesting to me is, again, and this is thinking ahead, if Bondsman structure, and this leads me to believe that Bondsman will kind of be the same that it is now. If with a Codex, we were to say, get Bondsman impacting Big Knights back,
oof.
I'm suddenly this strat's a bargain. I'm super into it, because one of the issues you can run sometimes with, back when Bondsman worked both ways, is having enough Bondsman targets for the Big Knights you want. Like as soon as people start chipping away Armigers, you actually can't get the Bondsman abilities up to impact the Big Knights. Having this in your back pocket where it's like, cool, I'm going to give these Skitarii Rangers this. It could be the Castigator one. But now the Castigator has it too. Now, again, there's a lot of utility in that if that kind of option were to come back. So this is one in my head that's both good in this detachment right now, but potential changes coming on the horizon with our Codex could put this to next level for me.
All right. Once EP machine focus in your command phase, 1 Imperial Knights unit from your army, and to the start of your next turn, your unit can ignore any roll modifiers to the following: weapon skill, blizzard skill, hit, or wound roll. That's the last one is the only one that matters there. The fact that for 1 CP you can ignore minuses to wound on things like, say, Death Shroud, on multitude of different targets that are -1 to wound or reactively -1. That makes this a decent option. How do you feel about it?
You're spot on there. The other one is, obviously, we don't have here Shoulder the Burden. So when the Big Knights do get bracketed and they take that -1 to hit, this gives you that ability to cancel it out. And there's still a couple of things out there that modify ballistic skill and also have the option of handing you like a -1. So having that to slap on to avoid like a Crusader getting hit with that or something, it definitely has play. And again, all of these being in a single CP, Canis Rex gets a free strat in your turn and your opponent's turn. Or sorry, a discounted strat. Let me rephrase. But in this detachment, it's a free strat every player turn. You start looking at all of these and you're like, cool, I can see uses for a lot of this. I'm like Canis for free situationally.
Yeah, me too. I think this is actually a fairly good stratagem. All right, next one: aggression begets aggression. Best named strat in the detachment.
Yep, love it.
But it's in your shooting phase.
I don't know though. I will tell you the final stratagem. I too love the name.
Fair. Somehow aggression begets aggression, but only in the shooting phase. 1 Imperial Knights unit from your army, or 1 Imperial Knights character unit from your army, and 1 friendly Adeptus Mechanicus unit that is within 6 of it. Until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by models in your units have assault. So you get assault on your knight, and a unit of Adeptus Mechanicus within 6 get assault also. There is not a lot of ways to get a big knight to advance and shoot. In fact, unless you have assault on the gun, there really isn't right now any way to advance and shoot with a big knight.
There's only one gun that we have that's assault, and that's the
Lancer. Yep, which is the trashiest gun that a big knight ever had. Yes, it is. It actually is worse than the Bagheera and the Styrics. So yes, it is. Is this any good? Because I think this one's pretty mid also, but you're going to use it.
I have found it, I have loved it in the couple of test games I've played. Being able to suddenly, Cerestus Knights have the hustle to get where you need them to go. Having an attribute that already moves base 12, love that. I've found myself in this edition really missing the base 12 movement or base 10 movement for Dominus Knights, instead looking at 10 and 8. In GW terrain in particular, a Dominus Knight can't actually move through a wall in GW terrain because the base is so long. If they are behind the terrain piece on your turn without advancing, they can't go through the wall. So this opens up opportunities there. I slammed a 6 on spinning this on a Crusader and having it just jet across 16 inches to get a line of sight and open up feels really good. So I think and a lot of times late game Knight players can run into the obstacle of, I both need to get to that objective and kill something.
And kill. Yeah.
And it's a binary choice right now. This offers up options there. The one interesting thing that tripped me up is that the target for the stratagem is one Imperial Knight's character or knight and one friendly AdMech unit within 6. So you do have to have an AdMech unit within range.
You have to have the AdMech unit. Yeah.
So it's an interesting hamstring that I could see people like forgetting.
Yeah, me too.
Because you get excited about it and you're like, oh yeah, I have assault, I'm going to do that.
All right, into the last one, which is definitely the spiciest. If you are not playing to make use out of this strat, what are you doing in this detachment? This is Thronegeist Fury. Your opponent's movement phase, so not the charge phase, just after an enemy unit is set up or ends a normal advance or fallback move. One Imperial Knights Titanic unit from your army that is within 24 of and visible to the enemy unit. Select one ranged weapon equipped by your model. That model can shoot that enemy unit, only if it's an eligible target. When doing so, you can only make attacks with the selected weapon, and you only hit on 6, regardless of any bliss skill or any modifiers. But 1 CP, 1 gun Overwatch. On paper, I didn't love this. I thought, this isn't going to do that much. This is kind of it's cute, I guess. But then I watched the battle report that you and John Lennon had, and I'm like, oh shit, okay, we're cooking.
I'll be honest, going into that game, John and I were both like, it's Overwatch with like kind of more restrictions, right? Because it's not when a unit begins a move, which is an important one. You can only do it when they end, so things can move out of line of sight. But there's 2 things here that I feel like I underestimated in my initial read of it. One is just the threat projection that this creates. We have all gotten wildly, we've all gotten used to. We walk up, you're playing an Imperial Knights player or the random Chaos player that has big Knights, and you go, oh, cool, none of them can Overwatch. Like, I just move wherever I want, I do whatever I want. I stage my charge as close as possible. Not anymore. Like, you have to think about that. The threat is always there. And then the second thing is, any big Knight with sustain, because remember, when you activate to shoot, you get a hit reroll and a wound reroll.
Mm-hmm.
If you say have Knight of the Magnet Opus, you're rerolling all 1s and you have a hit reroll.
That could be a 16-shot Gatling cannon. So 18-shot Gatling cannon.
18-shot. And if you've got sustain on it, every single 6 is 2 hits.
Say because you're a Crusader that didn't move? Mm-hmm. Oh, here we go. We're cooking.
Or your Canis who has it intrinsically and could use this strat for free. And if he uses it for free, you could then say you've got Lancer in a Space Marine army that's popping out to shoot you. Those are 2 shots you do not want. Well, my gun's AP3, flat 4 damage. I can do it for free on Canis and then say I only roll 2 shots. Well, I could spend the CP to still re-roll that number of shots, and I'm only down 1.
Or you could roll 2 6s, get 4 hits, and kill it anyway.
Yep. And then the final part that I discounted, I guess there's a third part, is that this is a different stratagem than Overwatch. Armigers could still Overwatch.
Correct.
Say a Tech Priest Manipulus with its transonic torrent auto-hitting gun with dev wounds could Overwatch after you do. Or a Calidus Assassin could Overwatch after you do.
And it should be pointed out that Manipulus will have real 1 to wound as well on that dev wound gun.
Yep.
Yeah.
I now maybe understand why GW has been slow to bring back Overwatch on Titanic units. At least after the 1 test game that I popped off with it. I've killed in 3 activations. I killed 2 baby war dogs, and I took 18 wounds off of a Chaos Questoris model with the thermal cannon on a Crusader. And that's a high. Like that gets you addicted.
Well, the issue is here, you've peaked, right? It's all downhill from here now, Brian. It's like, it's never going to do that well again. And you're going to be chasing that buzz. But I am sold on this. Of course, everyone, as soon as they saw this come out, they're like, yes, the Valiant's back. We can Overwatch 3d6, strength 8 -1, ignores cover, 2 damage, Overwatch. And then you think about the units that are getting played in games right now. So yeah, sure, you could use that gun and you will totally ice those 5 Warp Spiders. But a Rhino kind of doesn't care. And so many other things in the game don't care. So yeah, we've really kind of moved away from the times when that was the terror.
Because when you look through the strats here, you go, oh man, now I can give assault to a Valiant. It can get out there with its harpoon of flamer. I can Overwatch with it. Like I could give it another 4 wounds. We're back. But I do think it wasn't just the loss of Overwatch that's held the Valiant back. If that flamer were a slightly better profile, maybe AP2, maybe 3 damage, not 2. I'm suddenly way more interested in bringing a Valiant, but right now it just doesn't bring the punch for the points cost.
It should be less points. Like I don't see why a Valiant should be over 500 points still.
Or I will put it out there, Games Workshop, when you were, because Adam is a wonderful human being, and I'm sure you're listening to his podcast.
Yeah.
The Valiant and the Castellan should have a different feel. Right now they both shoot hard, but that's it. The Valiant is short ranged. Make it do something in combat. Make it shoot the harpoon into the ground, maybe, and electrify. Like, give me some kind of a cool sweep, anything. And then all of a sudden, again, all of this package around a Valiant, I'm way more interested again.
Yeah, I have seen and observed people like, because you can't fall back and do anything in any of either of the.
That is the one strat I really wanted in here.
I've charged big knights with scouts. But I've charged this edition. I have charged a Castellan with 5 scouts.
It's sloth in combat. It can't kill him.
2 turns. He didn't even shoot himself out of combat because he's got 2 melter gun shots.
Yeah, every gun is blast on the Castellan.
Yeah, couldn't even shoot its way out. And I was just like, this is stupid. This is so silly.
Because those Dominus Knights, they have 4 attacks and they only hit on 4s. In combat.
Yeah.
Like, it's not good.
But anyway, my dude, that brings us to the end of the detachment and its review. So we are going to rate this thing on 2 metrics. First one out of 10, 0 being the worst possible detachment you could possibly think of, and 10 being the best one you could possibly think of. What would you give this?
A 6, maybe bordering on a 7, like a 6.5. And I would caveat that with, as I've kind of outlined, we've gone through it, the Codex could make me change this detachment to like an 8 or a 9.
Yeah. I'm a little bit further down on it. I give this like a 5. This has it gets a pass mark. It just doesn't. It's a knight detachment that I don't feel like does enough for knights. Like, you are not enhancing their innate abilities that much. The only thing that really makes a knight there's only 2 things here that make a knight do something it doesn't do already: advance and shoot, and Overwatch. That's it. That's the only 2 things here. There's not a single enhancement that makes it do something extra or spicy. The detachment doesn't.
You don't get to heal normally.
Yeah, you have a 6 feel no pain. Which
I know.
Equates to like you would have to heal an armager. An armager would have to be damaged and not dead twice to heal the 2 wounds that on average the 6 feel no pain on 12 wound gives you.
Yeah.
So that's my only beef. That's my biggest beef with the only regaining 1 wound.
And we've lost things that we rely on, right?
Correct.
We don't have rotate ion shields.
Well, there's, apart from the real ones to hit from a single enhancement, there's actually nothing here that enhances the shooting or combat of knights in this army.
No, and that is the one other thing that I was interested in, just to see if we would be able to hand out some buffs from AdMech.
Yes, vice versa. Yeah.
Because Bonded Imperative lets us go one way. So I do wonder if there's some design space there that could explore. But I hear you. It takes away some other things. The 2 things it does give us, and I think this also might be Stockholm Syndrome, like, what other faction is this freaking excited about getting assault? Or hey, you got a stratagem to Overwatch with 1 gun, and I'm over here like, this is the best thing since sliced bread. But it just, because of the way our faction works, those two do change. This detachment will play differently than any other. unless
It's true. Yep.
they decide the next data slate to hand us Overwatch back. At which point, I'll throw this detachment out the window.
Well, I'm of the opinion this is what Overwatch the Overwatch stratagem should be changed to. Like you can just Overwatch with one gun on a Titanic model instead of 0, and then they can do something else with throwing Grass Fury and give us advance and charge. Advance and charge.
Fall back, shoot and charge.
Oh my god, how good would that be?
That's because the Chaos Knights got that in their new detachment, and it stings a little bit seeing that there.
Mm-hmm. All right, next one, my dude. Next ranking system. So from D tier all the way up to S tier, where would you put an Imperial Knights army wielding this detachment?
I do unfortunately think we're in like D tier right now.
Yep.
But I think on your best day you can make a case for C tier Noble Lance, but this is D tier.
So, yeah, I believe this is D tier. A lot because I think there's a steep learning curve that's going to come with the using of this army, similar to what I said previously about the Chaos Knights. Mm-hmm. But in addition to that, I just think the game is extremely predatory towards Knights at the moment. Yep. And it's vicious. It's absolutely vicious towards Knights. Yeah, I would put it in D tier also, unfortunately, and that's just the way it is.
For all of my excitement about some of these things and the cool plays that they open up in the scope of this meta, it doesn't open up enough.
It's good. It's exactly what I said. It doesn't drastically increase their durability, and Knights do have an issue with just getting killed by like 15 scions that come from reserve. Just pop any old knight, give or take, on a good day. Mm-hmm. And then they also have an issue that they don't kill or fight better. They don't shoot or fight better in this detachment, apart from one enhancement. So their ability to clap back isn't always. And man, I've had such varied results with shooting. Like I had a paladin shoot a DDA, iced it just with the battle cannon. The freaking battle cannon iced a DDA. And I've also shot a sustained hit +1 to wound Crusader at Magnus and not done a wound. And it's wild out there.
Yeah, that's our kind of Achilles heel. Is variance impacts Knights so much because few models, fewer attacks, high quality models, high quality attacks. If you just come out rolling ones, you're in for a very bad day, and it's not, other than maybe telling you to buy new dice, it's not anything you did wrong.
Yeah.
So you're spot on there.
You hit the nail on the head as well. The Knights have a digging up problem. They can't dig up from a bad position. But anyway, we're giving away part 2 stuff over there.
Oh, my mistake. Sorry.
No, that was my fault, mate. I was leading the dance. But that is going to wrap us up for this segment. Hopefully, you very much enjoyed the beautiful Brian Jones joining us. Good luck to you, sir, at LVO. Hopefully, the Noble Lance treats you well, and if you choose to take it, if not,
I'm looking forward to seeing you there.
Taking the forward back. But yeah, everybody go and get some Knights coaching from this man also. He's an absolute legend of the community. And yeah, dude, thanks very much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
G'day, my lovelies, and welcome to the third segment and last segment on this week's episode. You've already listened to some beautiful review of the Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights detachments, and here with the third night, all the knights getting reviewed on this one. The Grey Knights is next up. I wonder if they did it on purpose. Do you wonder if they did that on purpose? They released Chaos Knights, Imperial Knights, and Grey Knights in the same couple of days.
Well, they definitely saved the best till last. That's all I can say.
Of this week's Grotmas review. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And I definitely think they did. They wanted to make the knight pun in there somewhere.
Yeah, undeniably. Anyway, you've just heard the dulcet tones of the beautiful Stuart Trainer. You may know him as Vandalex on many a Discord and a place. He also has a wonderful blog, which he doesn't update nearly enough, mate. Get on top of that. Chop, chop.
I know there's going to be an episode very, very soon, though, about my little run through in the lead up to Uprising. That's going to be happening on Australia Day weekend. So hopefully you can catch that and get a bit of an insight of what I'm thinking going into a big 8-round event and how to maybe try and podium at such an event. So could be an interesting read soon. Where would they go to find such a thing? You can find it on Blogspot at the Paladin Trials. And yeah, that's I'll update you at the end about it too. Beautiful. All right, my man, Warpbane Task Force. Give us your hot takes. How do you feel about this attachment? It's straight up I think this is just a good detachment.
Me
and
too.
It's very different from the original index detachment that Grey Knights received. So Grey Knights, obviously, in their index detachment, are probably the most mobile army in the game. You've just got incredible tricks in terms of Mists of Deimos, auto advancing 6 with your detachment rule, and well, what once was 3-inch deep strike, which is now, of course, 6-inch deep strike. But what it kind of lacked overall was really just good ways to apply reliable damage. You did have the ability to make your weapons dev wounds in combat, but that's really about it. Warpbane, however, it gives you the juice. It makes your knights really feel like the elite warriors that they often should be. So it sacrifices tricks, but it hits.
Yeah, it's what I love about it is, it was always going to be a hard task to give people something that was more flexible than what they already had for Grey Knights. And so they're going the other way. They're just like, well, let's just make a strong, like, damage dealing detachment, which is not what they are known for at the moment. Yes, sure, you can do a lot of damage, especially if you're taking, Dread Knights for days or, ripping Paladin or Terminator charges with Drago from reserve. But outside that, like, you're just relying on, I got a Stormbolter. And either this is very good or very bad in this matchup. But they've just gone like straight line. Let's just beef the boys. The detachment rule is thus: Hallowed Ground, very similar to the Canoptic Court. Certain areas of the battlefield are in your army's Hallowed Ground. If you are a Grey Knight in your army's Hallowed Ground, you get full rerolls to hit. If you're not in the Hallowed Ground, you just have reroll ones to hit all the time. So everything in the detachment, just reroll ones to hit. If you're in the Hallowed Ground, full rerolls to hit. Hallowed Ground is always your deployment zone. Anywhere within 6 inches of a Purifier squad, so you can already see the tilt of what they're pushing you towards here. And then, of course, you control half the objectives in No Man's Land. No Man's Land is Hallowed Ground. You control your opponent's objective. You've already won the game. You don't need any rerolls anymore. Who cares? This is a awesome detachment rule, right?
It's incredible. Like, I mean, there's still an entire detachment to go, but just the detachment rule makes this army viable. Like, straight up. Full rerolls to hit. Like, I mean, Space Marines, until the recent buff, they're pretty much their armor roll was just full rerolls to hit against one enemy unit.
Correct.
And this is now basically full rerolls to hit army-wide if you set it up right.
Yep. Well, the fact of the matter is, Purifiers in this attachment will just have perma rerolls to hit because they're always within 6 of themselves. So straight off the bat, Purifiers just go from 0 to hero. Because previously, I was very keen on Purifiers in certain metas, like when we had the AC/DC meta and certain other Horde metas. I thought Crow plus 10 Purifiers, even 5 Purifiers at a time, was just gas. But now they're
unit.
Sorry.
I was a big champion of that unit. I used it quite a lot. It did fall off towards the, some of the hull metas that we saw later in the year of 2024. But, it was a fantastic unit. When it was in the right matchups, it absolutely baked stuff, which was great.
All right, what is the first of the enhancements, mate?
The first is the Mandulian Reliquary. And I'm going to mispronounce a few of these, so my apologies.
You are on the correct show, sir. You're on the right show.
That's it. This is what we do here. We mispronounce 40k stuff. Right. But here's what it does. It's for a Grey Knights model only. While the bearer's unit is not battle shocked, add 3 to the bearer's objective control characteristic.
Just the bearer, though, right?
Just the bearer, yeah. But it's any Grey Knight model. So this can go on a Grandmaster in Nemesis Dread Knight, pushing it to OC7, which is not quite an armor guard, but it's not a bad substitute.
Yeah, and it'll run you 20 points, which is a little bit more than I probably want, but not too bad.
It is. I agree. 20 points is a little much, but at the same time, you're often struggling to spend the last 30 or so points in a Grey Knight list anyway, so it often makes the cut.
Radiant Champion is up next for 15 points. I think this one's fantastic. Infantry model only. Thank God if you put this on a Dread Knight Grandmaster, it would be absolutely bonkers. The various melee weapons just have precision. And while the bearer is wholly within your army's Hallowed Ground, each time a melee attack made by the bearer scores a wound, they take a mortal in addition. What's the most amount of attacks you can throw from a single character is the first question.
So I think if you want to like maximize the output on this one, most of the Grey Knight characters are locked at 5 unless you're 5 attacks, unless you're a named character. But I think the best recipient of this in terms of just raw output is the Brother Captain, because Brother Captain gives sustained hits when he's leading a unit, and he innately rerolls wounds with psychic weapons.
So he has 1 less attack though, so he's got 4 attacks, but he hits on 2s with sustained. So a lot of the time, and rerolls as well if you're next to Purifiers or Hallowed Ground. So you're going to convert that into 5, sometimes even 6 hits that reroll to wound. So very consistent.
That's correct. And like again, this gives me like old Reaper of Obliterax vibes, where every time you wound, it does a mortal wound in addition. And like as a Tyranid player as well, like I can tell you how much that like stacked up. So this is definitely a great enhancement, and you're probably going to see it in a lot of lists.
Yeah, and it'll run you only we're only 15 points, which isn't an only. Like if it was 10 points, it'd be only 10 points. 15 points, it's about right for this, I reckon. What's the next one?
Next is File of the Abyss, which will run you 25 points. Grey Knights infantry model only. Models in the bearer's units have the stealth ability.
Okay.
I'm a bit on this one.
Yeah, me too.
The cool juice here you could do is have like 2 bricks of Terminators, one being led by Voldus, one with the File of the Abyss, and you essentially have 2 -1 to hit Terminator units, which is pretty cool. But I don't think this detachment really wants you to sink into like big, durable infantry.
Off the cuff, me and you. I don't know. Did me and you chat about this? I think we chatted about this in person with the scrim we were playing. We were of the opinion this is not power armor because it's all artificer armor. This is the non-Terminator and Dreadnought list. So
I agree. Yeah. This is definitely power armor Grey Knights, for want of a better word.
The last one is Paragon of Sanctity for 10 points. Once per battle, at the start of any phase, the bearer can select 1 friendly Grey Knights unit within 18 of visible to it. If it does, until the end of the phase, that unit is within your army's hallowed ground. So this is pretty much a once per game give out rerolls to a unit for 10 points.
For sure. And look, a lot of your stratagems and also enhancements key off Hallowed Ground. For 10 points, this is honestly pretty good. I think the difficult part you're going to have is actually having a character in your army that's going to take this.
Correct.
Because, again, you're limited to how many characters you can take as Grey Knights simply because they are a little bit more expensive. And there are other enhancers you're going to take before this. But this is actually I think it's for 10 points, I think this is just a good enhancement.
Me too. So the conceptually, I'm putting this on a GMDK. And deep striking it potentially, and then deep striking an ancillary unit with it. Like I'm deep striking another unit with it. And then you just bang the other unit. Actually, can select itself.
Yes.
You select 1 friendly Grey Knight. Yeah, so you can just deep strike and give yourself Hallowed Ground on your GMDK. Or, give it to, another unit deep strikes next to you, like a unit of Purgs or whatnot.
Definitely could, yeah. So that's one of the, and again, it's obviously a lot harder to get Hallowed Ground in your opponent's deployment zone. So if your opponent does leave a hole where you can get in, this means that that unit can get access to full rerolls to hit, even if it's in the enemy deployment zone.
All right. Jumping into the first of the stratagems, this is Sanctified Kill Zone for 1 CP. It's your shooting phase or the fight phase. 1 Grey Knight unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot or fight this phase that is within your army's hallowed ground. At the end of the phase, each time the model in your unit makes an attack, reroll a wound roll of 1, or full rerolls to wound if you are a Purifier. So Purifiers will just have innately rerolls to hit and 1 CP rerolls to wound. Seems gas, right?
Oh, absolute money. They were cooking with this one, to be honest. Realistically, you're probably ever only going to use this stratagem on Purifiers. The reroll wounds rolls of 1 isn't too bad, but it's the full rerolls where it really matters. This just allows Purifiers just to absolutely punch up into so many things. 5-mans feel really good when they just charge into something and they're a 125 point unit and suddenly they can kill 200 point units. So
it's wild. It's wild. What's the next strat?
The next strat is Flames of Sanctity. which is you use this at the end of the fight phase. Target one Purifier squad from your army that was eligible to fight this phase. And the effect is roll 1d6 for each enemy unit within 6 inches of your unit, and you add 1 to the result if your unit includes Castell and Crow. On a 4+, that enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds.
So I guess you can use this as a finisher if you didn't quite get enough damage done in the fight phase, or if you're going to hit like 2 or 3 units, I guess you pop this off.
For sure. And the good thing about this stratagem is this is the end of the fight phase. So you would be able to do all of your piling and consolidates with your unit first. Yeah. So if you're planning to use this stratagem, you might want to try and get like really deep in with, say, Crow's Purifier unit. And then just end of the fight phase, go, cool, I'm just going to explode and see how many mortal wounds I do. So this is one of 2 kind of mortal wound stratagems that this detachment has. I think this is the better one. So this is the one that you're more likely to see used.
Fair enough. Next up is Hallowed Beacon for 1 CP. It's in the reinforcement step of your movement phase. 1 Grey Knight infantry unit that isn't Terminators. Like we said, it's telling you not to use Terminators here. You get a 6-inch deep strike, but wholly within your army's Hallowed Ground. So you have to be within 6 of a Purifier unit, or your deployment zone, or controlling the middle. But not bad, right? But where do you find a home for this? Because the funny thing is here, usually they say you can't charge after this.
Well, it seems like they were very, very bad when they wrote this, and they forgot to put it there. But that's for our benefit. So yes, you can. Deep strike 6 away from your opponent and charge, just like the Demons Detachment, the Warpress ability. This is, obviously amazing. Again, this only affects basically power armor infantry, so you're not using it in your Dread Knights and you're not using it in your Terminators, because it'd be really funny to have a 3-inch charge from Deep Strike with Drago's unit, but also probably a bit silly with some of the stuff you can do with it. But regardless of this stratagem is very good.
Incredible.
It's not a stratagem you're going to be hitting the button on every turn, simply because setting up the Hallowed Ground in your movement phase is a little bit trickier than you might think, because you check control at the start of the phase.
Correct.
So it's most likely that, unless you're in a really good position, that you're only going to be holding 1 objective in No Man's Land at the start of your turn, or start of the phase.
More likely, this is your Purifiers become greater demon delivery systems for your other units, right?
100%. Yes.
Yeah. And I love, dude, it's so funny they got this strat when they're the anti-demons.
I know. Look, Grey Knights are already using the warp to their benefit.
That's correct.
It's like there's a weird bit of like paradox there with Grey Knights at that.
I think you spelled. I think you said hypocrisy incorrectly.
Hypocrisy. That's what I was looking for. This is why you're the wordsmith, and this is why I just play Grey Knights and hopefully table.
All right, what's the next one, brother?
The next is Fires of Covenant, which is the next mortal wound stratagem. So you use this at the start of your opponent's movement phase, and you select 1 Grey Knight's infantry unit from your army. Until the end of the turn, each time an enemy unit is set up or ends a normal move, advance, or fall back within 6 inches of your unit, roll 1d6, adding 2 to the result if your unit is wholly within your army's Hallowed Ground. On a 4+, the enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds.
Okay, so this is more of a deterrent than a proactive ability, is the issue I have with it.
Correct.
So your opponent has full ability to just not have this happen if it's a concern to them.
Yeah, exactly. I think this one requires a bit of planning if you're going to use it. Like, you really want to go, okay, I'm going to set up my Purifier unit behind this wall, but covering it's 6 inches, like covering the entire objective. Yeah. And I'm just asking my opponent, okay, well, this turn, if you want to move on to this objective, you're most likely going to take mortal wounds.
Yeah.
Cool little thing about it, though, is it does say when units are set up as well.
Yeah.
So this could be used to like hit stuff coming out of transports, which normally abilities like this don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool, and it adds to a bit of a critical mass of mortal wounds when you think about it. So you have two abilities here to do D3 mortals on demand. You also have ability to do grenades. You have ability to tank shock with the DKs, and then you have the Radiant Champion ability to just do mortals when you deal a wound. So there actually is a significant amount of mortals you can lay down on people. Which
there is. It does add up. So, like, again, there are times when you would use this, but again, I think a lot of the time it's going to be a lot harder to set up than it would be worth.
Yeah, me too. 1 CP, Aegis Eternal. Your opponent's shooting phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets, 1 Grey Knight infantry unit from your army that was selected. And to the end of the phase, models that are wholly within your Hallowed Ground have a 4+ invulnerable save. Well, this looks really good, but not sure it is. But you know where it's really good? It's really good against Scions. So good against Scions. Against everyone else, you've got a 2 up, and you're probably in cover if you're playing correctly. So if they're not melter guns, you're probably fine anyway.
Yeah, look, it's not bad into Star Shatter.
Oh, true. Yeah.
AP4.
Yeah.
But yeah, you also have to use this in your Hallowed Ground as well. Which again, a lot of the time you're going to be setting up, but because this is in your opponent's turn, they have a lot of ability to kind of, take away your Hallowed Ground before you get to use the strategy.
Exactly right. So on Purifiers, you'll always have access to a 4-up, which is nice. But yeah, on everybody else, it is
as well. So if this was combat, it'd be a lot better.
Dude, if it was combat, it'd be busted. If this was combat, I'd be like, this isn't Purifiers. This is 30 Interceptors, and we're just going to yeet at them and win every melee matchup. What's the last one?
The last one is my favorite stratagem from this detachment. I've used this to great effect. So this is Repelling Sphere, or as I like to call it, Get Orbed Idiot. And you use this at the start of your opponent's charge phase. Select 1 Grey Knights infantry unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, each time an enemy unit declares a charge and your unit is one of the targets of that charge, subtract 1 from the charge roll. Or subtract 2 instead if your unit is wholly within your army's Hallowed Ground.
That is baller. So
it's a great stratagem. Like straight away, like you can just shut down any deep strike charges from your opponent.
Yeah.
By just screening with your infantry.
Yeah. You can have an 11 from reserve, sir. Did you make it? Nah. All right. See you later. We're just going to kill you. I like that a lot. I like it very much.
That's true.
Once again, something that Purifiers will just permanently have. Purifiers will just have permanently -2 to charge. In fact, Purifiers just have so much gas here. They have just 1 CP, 4+ invuln, 1 CP, rerolls to hit, rerolls to wound. They have, dude, so much.
Again, like this is the Purifier detachment. You're probably going to see 3 units of Purifiers in every list that's Warpbane. You could probably get by with 2 if you were really trying to cut down on it, but like I think you take 3. Why wouldn't you in this detachment? Like you get so much.
So just looking at the Purifier data sheet, because it's probably something that's very relevant for context for people, they have the standard strike marine profile of, movement 6, toughness 4, 2+ save, 2 wounds, leadership 6, OC 1. They have a terrible data sheet ability, which is each time one of this unit makes an attack, +1 to hit if they're below starting strength, and +1 to wound if they're below half strength. Where they get a little spicy is that they have the Purifying Flame shot as well. So this is a single shot per guy, which is range 18, anti-infantry 2+, ignores cover, psychic 4/1/1, hits on a 3. So as soon as you've lost a guy, this will hit on 2s, but you're just going to have permanently reroll 1s to hit anyway, so rerolls to hit anyway, so in this detachment, doesn't matter that much. But Crow gives the unit a second shot, doesn't he?
He does indeed. He gives you an additional shot per guy, so it starts to add up pretty quick, and that unit shoots a lot.
Yeah, because they'll have in a 10-man. Do they get 2 special weapons or 4 special weapons?
They get 4 special weapons.
That's right. Oof.
You can do, 4. If you wanted to go just max amount of shots, you could go 4 silencers. Everyone has a storm bolter. Everyone has purifying flame, and suddenly you're doing 24. What are they called?
Shots.
Sorry, I just said it. Yeah, 24 purifying flame shots. You got 24 silencer shots with sustained hits and 4 rerolls to hit. And then you've got another 28 storm bolter shots on top of that.
Jeez.
So,
Jeez. I mean, yeah, if Horde armies were the rage, like we said, this unit is just a world ender.
Every Horde army in the game hates this detachment. Like, absolutely every single one.
Well, my man, that brings us to the end of the detachment review. And I got to say, this is one of my favorite detachments that they did for Grotmas. For the same reasons that I really love the Custodians detachment, and you've probably heard I've said this a couple of times now, the best things that Grotmas was doing for us was activating more of the army, or more of the faction, more of the units in books.
More ways to play.
Exactly right. Just like freeing you up to play more than just Dread Knights, Terminators, and Drago, which is really what I felt like was most of what's happening in the index and has been for the entirety of the edition.
Yeah. I mean, look, Dread Knights still love this detachment. Not going to lie. You're still going to see them. However, you are going to see, again, Purifiers, which was a unit that, like, you saw maybe if your opponent really, maybe if your local Grey Knight guy really liked Crow, you would see them. But you would never see Purifiers outside of that.
Yeah. And look, Crow's a baller. Like, Crow's always been a baller. He's always been pretty legit. But it was just so many metas where he didn't make sense. Like, if you had 10 Purifiers...
Old Grey Knight as well. So that's something as well.
Like, if you had played against me, mate, with your Purifier unit when I was playing, like, 15 Deathwing Knights, it's just not a unit. It just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. It really hates Armor of Contempt as well. Like,
but yeah, Crow's an absolute lad. Fantastic model as well. But my man, all right. So out of 10 as a Grey Knight player, and speaking on behalf of all Grey Knight players, how happy are you with this detachment?
I'm a big Purifier person myself. I think that they're one of my favorite units in Warhammer, just in terms of their thematic awesomeness. They're just great. So I'm going to call this a 9, which might be a bit higher than a lot of other people's, but like, it's a good detachment. It allows you to just hit hard. And if you're like me and you want your paladins and your purifiers and just all your Grey Knights to actually feel like an elite fighting force that can go out and kill things, then this is the detachment that allows you to do it. So for me, I'm pretty happy.
I'm the same. I'm 8 or 9 out of 10 with this. I don't think they could have done this more perfectly. And this is the level that I want all these, essentially, like, because what they're doing is they're ham-fisting you into an archetype that's built around Purifiers. But they've given Purifiers enough, you don't care. It's totally fine. It's like, oh my God, the juice is so worth the squeeze. Which isn't the same as what they've done for some of the other ones, notably like the Votann detachment and I'd say probably the Death Guard detachment, where you kind of have to build around Hearthguard and Terminators, and you're like, well, it's just kind of not, they haven't given you enough to really juice up those units. So if they're going to give me like a detachment that's just built around one unit, this is the level I expect.
Yeah. Again, they've really done a good job with this one. So, like, Grey Knight players out there should be happy and experiment with it. See which power armor unit you think uses this detachment best, apart from Purifiers, which obviously gonna love it.
All right, my man. Where do you think this detachment lies in the competitive lexicon, competitive tier list? So D tier up to S tier. Where would you put this list?
I'm going to say it probably sit in a very similar spot to the index detachment for Grey Knights.
I think it is right next to it. But yeah, go.
Yeah, I'd put it probably, I think, about solidly in the upper B tier. Is where I would put it. In the same place as Index Grey Knights, to be honest. Like, again, it does different things, but the Index detachment is still a fantastic detachment. So there's an argument for both.
Yep, I agree. I still think it has a lot of predators in the meta at the moment. I still think it doesn't love the other power armor matchups. But outside that, it just rickrolls like so many other armies. But yeah, unfortunately, I do think the S tier right now, that being Guard and Marines, are both pretty heavy predators for the GKs.
100%. And this detachment, like, I mean, I know Thousand Suns are like, not at the heights that they were earlier in this edition, but like, this detachment hates it even more than the detachment. It's such an awful game.
Because you can't jank them, at least.
You can't. You've got no defense against them.
Yeah, they're just going to blow straight through you. Anyway, my man, that is going to finish us up for this part and going to finish us up for this episode. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Hope you've enjoyed your 4th week of Grotmas. and I'm probably going to go on for another couple of weeks. I'm trying to get one done in the pipe in extra before I go off to LVO. But Stu, good luck to you, mate, at Uprising. I hope you'd have an incredible performance. I'm sure that you will. And tell me where to find that blog again.
You can find me at the Paladin Trials at Blogspot. And please come have a read. There's going to be a new episode soon, and there will be one as well in February sometime, which is going to be my recount of Uprising. So if you're interested to see what I take, if it is going to be the new Grey Knight Detachment and how I go with it, then please follow along.
Fantastic. And thank you very much, guys. Stay tuned, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much for your patronage. If you are a Patreon, if you're not, why aren't you? Get on it. Come on. I'm working hard here.
Oh, man. Do it.
All right. See you later. Bye.